So Mike Tyson grew up in Brownsville. It's a really rough neighborhood in Brooklyn. And it was a really tough upbringing. His mum and him and his two siblings spent a lot of time moving between abandoned buildings, sleeping on mattresses in cold rooms with no heating, no running water. Mike, he never knew his biological dad, but the man that he knew as his father was a pimp called Jimmy Kirkpatrick. So for a while, his mum's boyfriend was living with them, and they had like a very toxic relationship, very abusive. He'd beat her up, she'd give it back to him as well. There was one time she throws a pan of boiling water over him, and his skin's like all blistered. So this was like a very toxic environment that Mike was growing up in. At school, he struggles a lot. He gets bullied by other kids for being fat, for having a lisp. And he says that other kids would beat him up and rob him after school, rob him with guns. This is when he's 7. He drops out of school when he's 7. He says the final straw was when a kid steals his glasses on the way home and puts them in the gas tank of a car. And he's basically like, fuck this, I'm not going back. So around this time, he meets an older guy called Barkeem, who introduces him to burgling houses. He'd bring Mike along to these robberies and get him to squeeze through windows that he was too big to fit through. And Mike describes their relationship as like Oliver Twist and Fagin. So
sounds a lot like that.
Yeah, it really was. So they'd rob these houses, they'd get however much cash, and he'd give Mike like $100-$200 or something, which was nothing compared to what they stole, but to a 7-year-old, that seems like quite a lot. By the age of 10, he's moving up the rankings a little bit. He's part of a gang called the Rutland Row Crew, who burgled houses as well. So they'd go into school to get their free breakfast in the morning and would then leave and ride the train out to other neighborhoods and rob houses, basically. So apparently they dress as smart Catholic school kids. So they have like a smart white shirt on, their backpack and glasses. So yeah, so no one really suspected what they were up to. But yeah, they just robbing all these houses, coming out with all sorts of stuff. It was mostly, jewelry, cash. But there's one time they rob this house and find a World War I rifle with a bayonet on it. So he's 10 at this point, and he's roaming around the streets with this bayonet, and some older guys tell them that there's this like gang showdown going on in a park. So Mike turns up to this gunfight with a World War I bayonet, age 10. So Mike says that he started drinking and smoking weed when he was about 8 or 9, and by the age of 11 he was taking acid. But the guys who hung out with him on the street also introduced him to a more wholesome pastime, raising pigeons. Mike really falls in love with it. So these older guys would, bring him in and get him to go up and feed their pigeons, clear them out, whatever. And at some point he starts getting his own pigeons. One day, though, a very sad thing occurs, and his favourite pigeon, Julius, dies. So Mike's pretty heartbroken about this. He takes him down in the crate and leaves him on the steps. He's planning to make a tomb for him. And he goes off to, go home or whatever, arrange it a little bit. Comes back and he sees the garbage man throwing this crate with Julius in it into the back of the truck. And he just runs up and just knocks the garbage man out with one punch.
How old is he?
He's 10. He's 10.
Always 10.
So the world of pigeons also leads Mike to his first street fight. So he goes out and robs a house with this older guy, and they steal a load of cash, and Mike gets a few $100s and goes straight to the pet shop to buy some more pigeons for his collection. But some kids from the neighborhood spot him going up to the roof with these pigeons and decide to go and steal them. Mike basically spots what they're doing, goes up to confront them, and one of them, who goes by the name of Gary the Bully, pulls one of Mike's pigeons out from under his coat and rips the head off in front of him and smears the blood on Mike. See where he gets the name Gary the Bully from? That is classic Gary.
That's
But by this point, a big crowd has formed around them. Everyone's seeing that there's this confrontation going on, and people are screaming at Mike to hit him, and Mike like gets in, and he doesn't really know what he's doing. He's never really been in a fight before, but he swings and knocks this guy out. And he says that this is the first time that he's really felt the rush of being in front of a crowd, and people are like screaming his name. He's skipping around the not the ring, but like around the ring of people that have formed around them. And he says that from that point on, people in the neighborhood start to respect him. So he has this reputation now as a fighter. Like I think he's 11 at this point, and he's knocked out this older kid. And word starts to spread, and before long, grown men are coming from other neighborhoods to fight him. Which, like,
he's 11.
He's 11 years old. Like, I think he was big for his age.
Yeah, he must be.
But still, like, what are these grown men doing?
So this is where he gets the bug.
This is where he gets the bug, yeah. And he's got this newfound confidence. And with that, he decides to start taking revenge on the people who'd bullied him as a child. At this point, he says that he was just roaming around the streets with groups of his friends, basically just beating the shit out of anyone who'd crossed him in the past. So the guy that had put his glasses in the gas tank of the car, the incident that made him drop out of school, he comes across this guy one time, and him and his mates just beat the shit out of him, basically.
So that's the last time he picks on him.
Yeah,
no one's. What's his moniker?
Yeah.
You got to say, if you had been bullied loads and then you suddenly turn into this like fearsome fighter who could beat older men, you're gonna take revenge.
Yeah. It must have felt good.
Yeah. What did the bin man? Did that come before this?
This came. Yeah, this was before that.
I guess the bin man, there were no witnesses, so he didn't have the adrenaline. Of
yeah,
the crowd.
he said he was 10 when he knocked out the bin man. Yeah, he must have been massive at this point, I guess.
Yeah, I've seen pictures. He's big.
Oh yeah. He also at this point becomes more brazen in his criminality. So he starts burgling houses in his own neighborhood, which he says that he just doesn't really see the line between like the sort of the street code at this point.
Yeah, he doesn't understand this thing of like, don't rob your own people.
Yeah, but I think it's because he said that like people in my own neighborhood always beat me up as a kid, so he just didn't see that as like a faux pas.
He basically says in his book, like, I was feral, like I just didn't know the rules.
Yeah. He even starts robbing people in his own building, like his neighbours. He says that sometimes his mum's friends would come round to their place, and he'd sneak out of his bedroom window, climb the fire escape, and go and rob their flat upstairs. Unsurprisingly, though, this starts to get him into some trouble. So he was arrested 38 times by the time he was 13. And eventually he ends up being sent to this juvenile detention facility, juvie, which he basically says that he was sent off to this camp, and he's pretty terrified. Like, he thought he was going to be in with all these like hardened criminals. And he turns up on the first day, and it's like, oh, you guys. And it's just all his old bros from the street. And apparently his mum and his sister are pretty happy that he's been sent away, because it's reached the point where grown men have been coming round to their house with guns, like threatening to kill Mike because he'd been robbing their houses. So there are some positives that come out of his time at juvie. So one time they stick on a Muhammad Ali film, and he's really enjoying this film, and at the end of it, Muhammad Ali walks out and gives them this like quite inspiring talk about, you know, overcoming hardship. And at this point, Mike decides he loves Muhammad Ali. That's who he wants to be. As part of this juvie camp, one of the counsellors there does some sort of like sparring training with him, and he spots that Mike's got a talent for fighting. And after training him for a few months, he introduces him to the legendary boxing trainer, Cus D'Amato. And Cus kind of becomes a mentor for Mike. So every weekend he'd go and train with him. And Cus really knows that he's got a real talent on his hands. He tells Mike that he can be the youngest heavyweight champion ever. And when Mike's time at juvie ends, he ends up moving in with Cus.